To begin, I'm going to hand over to Jason Holt, the Chair of the RM.
Thank you, Emma. Good morning to everyone and a warm welcome on this frosty day to our 2021 Apprenticeship Ambassador Network Conference. Our theme today is celebrating our achievements, igniting and shaping our future. We have an abundance of achievements and accomplishments that we will hear about today, linked to 7 common indicators you see on the slide in front of you. Equally, today is about propelling ourselves towards the future to even greater heights, ensuring our advocacy work and our other activities carry on making a dramatic impression on the apprenticeship programme, as we explore how we can link to the latest apprenticeship priorities, to greater number of employers involved, to making sure that young people understand that a high quality apprenticeship will give them the skills to make their career dreams a reality. We've got an incredible nearly 400 ambassadors joining us today, which is a stunning achievement and an all-time record. We've also got a magnificent lineup of speakers, workshops and content, and I'm particularly excited that our Minister, Gillian Keegan, is joining us this morning. I want to give special thanks to some wonderful people: George Ritchie, Elizabeth Flegg, Emma Beauchamp, and Matt Newman from the network for their hard work in putting this conference together with the ESFA team. They have all invested significant time in making this conference relevant to all of you, our ambassadors. The conference working group had a deliberate AAN and Young Ambassador collaboration as a sign of our one network approach. We want this day to be of enormous benefit to you, and this conference, our conference, is certainly a time for reflection. As with everyone, COVID has been a major influence since we last met, but it's not held us back, far from it. We have grown, led by example, and played an important role in the country's rescue, recovery, and reimagining the future with our colleagues at the ESFA. Across the country, we have delivered the overall objectives we set ourselves. We have adapted, reached out, and worked together to deliver success. And all of our work captured within the quadrants of celebrating, storytelling, signposting, and insight. Thank you really so very much to all your work. Your passion and kindness is truly inspiring to me and those you interact with every day. And as chair of the AN for the past 3 years, I've been reflecting on my own journey. My father, as a 16-year-old apprentice as a diamond polisher in Hatton Garden, a refugee from war-torn Austria, and me becoming his apprentice 50 years later, and continuing his legacy as an ambassador for apprenticeships, something I can't quite believe. And in my reflective mood, I've also been looking back on our collective journey, where from 2018 onwards, the apprenticeship reforms were firmly fixed in the centre of our crosshairs. Our strategy then was concentrated to the apprenticeship programme and how the reforms were central to our mission. But we're now moving into a new chapter, and the AAN has to evolve as well. Our focus will shift slightly while we retain the 4 quadrants. Let's just remind ourselves. We can have a new slide, thank you. Let's just remind ourselves about a top-level overview of the AAN. For me, the words that jump out are inspire and influence. That is what we excel at, as well as nationally significant and locally relevant. That shows the impact we make. All the AN chairs agree now that as the apprenticeship programme evolves, so must we. We can't rest on our laurels. Now is the time to strive even harder to help the apprentices of tomorrow. Now is the time to work smarter and flex to the new world that continues to change day by day. We are a network that is made up of businesses across the nation, businesses that themselves never stand idly by as the world develops. A small group of AN chairs came together over a couple of days at a workshop recently to discuss how we refocus. Part of this was about factoring in the spending review outcomes, as well as anticipating the new direction of the FE White Paper. We had to ensure the AAN stays in tune with changing government priorities. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our approach to date has certainly allowed us to focus where we have strength. The advantage of our 4 quadrants is that they provide a clear and instant understanding to those around us of what we do. They paint a simple and powerful picture of the role of the AAN. And that's why it makes total sense to retain the 4 quadrants as we evolve our work and our regional and national activities. The future work we will do for the AAN connected to the new priorities will fit smoothly within our 4 quadrants. Karen Woodward will be talking through the details of the new messages in her session later. Karen will explain the absolute importance of high quality, the need to connect to more SMEs, the value of progression, and why we must up the numbers of completions. And as an SME myself, I can see the exciting and endless possibilities of SMEs embracing apprenticeships in even greater numbers. Government is edging closer to this vision, but we must accelerate the pace of this aspiration. There is also a workshop that Neil Weller is leading this afternoon on aligning the new priorities to the 4 quadrants. But throughout February and March, all ambassadors will have opportunities to talk through the new priorities as delivery plans are developed, because this has to be a consultative approach. That's all for me at this point of the day. I hope you all enjoy your conference. Be prepared to constructively challenge our speakers as we all share the same goal. We all want world-class apprenticeships. And before I ask Ingrid, as Vice Chair, to speak, we are fortunate to have a short recorded input from Eileen Milner, Chief Executive of the ESFA. Let's hear what Eileen has to say. Thank you all.
Hello, and I am delighted to be with you, our apprenticeship ambassadors, if only virtually, which is, it seems, the best that we can do in these very strange times. But let me start by thanking each and every one of you for all that you have done during the period of the last 12 months and, of course, before it. The commitments and the passion that you have for all things apprenticeships makes such a difference. And if ever we needed people to make a difference, it is now. And when I think about all that you have done and are achieving, it is important to draw out and say that it has made the most enormous difference. So let me just point to some of the things that I know that you are doing, and in the way that you use your voice and how it matters and helps me as the Chief Executive of the organisation that is responsible for making apprenticeships happen in this country, in England, but also to all those in public service and employers who benefit from what you do. You help government to make best use of the money that goes in to apprenticeships, and that's not a trivial amount in any way, shape or form. So in 21-22, the financial year we're in, we're going to be putting £2.5 billion into supporting apprenticeships. And some of that money, of course, comes from employers through the levy, but some of it comes from the state. And in addition to this, over the next 4 years, the National Skills Fund is going to put another £2.5 billion into the economy to support opportunities for people to begin their careers or to retrain. So apprenticeships and technical education are being invested in, and they're being invested in because they make a difference. They make a real difference to individuals, as you will know, but also because they can make such a difference to accelerating economic recovery. Because economic recovery doesn't mean that we will necessarily snap back to the way that we were. We will want businesses to grow, we'll want businesses to start, we'll want businesses to have the confidence to know that they have the skills available to them to thrive in what will be a difficult post-pandemic world. I want to particularly draw out the role that those of you in the Young Ambassadors Apprenticeship Network have made, and that is that you have recognised that young people in particular have suffered through the pandemic very significant disruption to their apprenticeships, or having had to adapt to entirely new ways of working. And in doing that, demonstrated enormous resilience, overcoming barriers and hurdles, and bringing to apprenticeships and to the organisations that you're part of real energy and determination. And I've heard that people have benefited so much from the work of support and advocacy that you have done. And I please ask you to carry on doing that, because we need you, and it is as simple as that. We need you to be advocating, we need you to be supporting, we need you to be always willing to use your voice, because as I said at the outset, to each and every one of you as an ambassador, your voice makes a difference. And let me end by just also giving a note of personal thanks to the wonderful Jason Holt, who leads all of our ambassadorial work. Without Jason's ongoing care, support, drive and commitment to all things apprenticeships, we wouldn't be as far on the apprenticeship journey that we are, and you wouldn't have the galvanising purpose that I recognise in each and every one of you. So let me end by where I began, by saying thank you so much. Please keep up the good work. Have that drive, that confidence in apprenticeships, and the optimism that we are driving towards an infinitely better time for each and every one of us. Enjoy your conference. Goodbye.
Thank you. So now next, I am going to hand over to Karen Woodward and Peter Mucklow to look at the apprenticeship programme priorities and the messages that we want ambassadors to focus on. And again, if anyone has any questions for Peter or Karen, then please do submit them into Slido, and if we have any time at the end, then we can pass those questions on. Over to you.
Good morning, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today, if not in body, then certainly in spirit. And I know it's fantastic that we've got over 400 people registered today. This is the biggest ever ambassador conference, and I think the ability to join online has really helped us open up the opportunity for even more of you to get involved. So really pleased that we're all here today. I just wanted to add my thanks to the Minister for taking the opportunity to speak at the conference today. I know her diary is incredibly busy, and it's been their first National Apprenticeship Week as the Minister, and she's thoroughly enjoyed all of the days so far, and I know she's still got more things planned, but great opportunity that she was able to spend with us. I think the Minister set out a really clear view of the direction of travel for apprenticeships and the programme, and her involvement, plus the video message from our Chief Exec, Eileen Milner, does powerfully demonstrate just how much government, and that particularly those of us in the ESFA, value, trust and respect the work and the voices of all of the ambassadors. This network is held in high esteem across government, and we have listened to your voices, made sure that we've taken your views and your insights on board to help shape policy, particularly as we've been moving through the pandemic. So thank you to all of you as our ambassadors. But we are in changing times with the spending review and with the recent FE white paper and a period of time after the apprenticeship reforms have embedded. It is now the right time to look on how we build upon the great apprenticeship ambassador network strategy that is in place. So focusing on storytelling, signposting, celebrating and providing insight. And I want to applaud the work of AAN chairs, especially Neil Weller, George Ritchie and Nigel Fenn, who have all worked very energetically towards shaping how those 4 key areas of the AAN strategy can work to focus on the new priorities of the programme moving forward. So focusing on our messages for ambassadors. Here is the real focus that we would like you to take forward over the forthcoming years. Jason has already highlighted these in his speech, and the Minister has referenced them at a top level. There are now 4 new areas where we need ambassadors to concentrate their activities, whether it's to celebrating, storytelling, signposting or providing insight. These 4 priorities can make an absolute meaningful and positive difference to the success of the apprenticeship programme, whether that's for employers, for the apprentices themselves, for local communities and importantly for the economy. And I now want to go in more detail one by one for these 4 key priorities. So moving on to looking at how we ensure the entire apprenticeship experience is high quality. High quality apprenticeships are the DNA of the entire programme. We have made significant reforms over the past 5 years to ensure that apprenticeships are meeting the needs of employers and that they give the skills that we need both now and in the future, bringing wider benefits to the economy and to our country. However, there is still more to do. We want to ensure that every apprentice has a quality experience, from when they investigate their options right the way through to their experience of their endpoint assessment and beyond into a fulfilling career. Employers and apprentices should have the confidence in the rigour, high performance and exceptional quality of apprenticeships. And we will be providing tools, advice and guidance to support employers to give their apprentices a high quality experience. This will include a quality roadmap that benchmarks what a high quality apprenticeship looks like, a linked self-assessment tool for use by both employers and providers, and support for employers who may well be experiencing problems with their apprenticeship provision. In addition, we will drive quality up by going further in linking traineeships to apprenticeships in growth sectors such as construction and digital. These sector-specific traineeships will better align to the content of traineeships to an employer-led standard, giving more trainees a better experience and employers greater confidence in being able to offer work placements to trainees and taking those trainees on into an apprenticeship. Not only is quality important, but we really need to focus on how we connect more SMEs with apprenticeships. As the Prime Minister announced, we will make funding available to enable more employers to take on apprentices. Smaller employers are important and they are the lifeblood of the economy because they increase job opportunities, they create more jobs, and we know smaller employers are more likely to recruit young people and to enable those young people to embark on new careers through their apprenticeship. We know that the number of small and medium-sized employers have reduced in their engagement in the apprenticeship programme, and we want to address that fall in apprenticeship starts that we have seen since the introduction of the levy, and particularly for those employers who do not pay the levy. This has been even more pronounced during the pandemic. But in the financial year 2021, we will be making a £2.5 billion investment available to support apprenticeships, including for employers that do not pay the levy, who will continue to be able to reserve funding for 95% of the apprenticeship training and assessment costs. And for particular small employers recruiting very young apprentices, then there should be no cost at all. This will enable small employers to access the apprenticeships they need as they move on to the apprenticeship service and gain greater control over their apprenticeship choices. Smaller employers are already benefiting from transfers from larger levy-paying employers, and these larger employers are using transfers to encourage apprenticeship starts and build stronger skills through all sectors and parts of the economy. But from August 2021, we will enable levy-paying employers to pledge specific amounts of their funds to be available for transfers. We understand that some of you have had trouble in identifying small employers to transfer your levy to. So at the same time, we will launch an online matching service to help levy-paying employers find small employers to transfer their levy to in an easy digital world, hopefully at the press of a button. By improving the transfer process, we will help levy-paying employers make greater use of their funds to support their supply chains, local areas, or other employers or particular sectors that they believe is important to invest in. And this will increase the transparency of how those funds are being used. We're also going to hear a bit more further today from both Mike Cherry from the Federation of Small Businesses and Dominic Unsworth MBE around getting more SMEs engaged with apprenticeships, a real priority, not just for the apprenticeship programme, but I think for the economy as a whole. Moving on to encouraging progression into higher level apprenticeships. Whilst apprenticeships continue to require a minimum duration of 12 months, with at least 20% of the apprenticeship's time spent in off-the-job training, we are working with employers, training providers and the Institute to enable apprentices with significant prior learning to reduce the duration of their apprenticeship and reach occupational competence more quickly. We will create clearer pathways for learners who are progressing from other formal training routes. And we will test whether the successful completion of a boot camp can be formally recognised as prior learning for an apprenticeship, and we will evaluate this new approach later in spring 21. We are looking at how we can better support the transition into apprenticeships from T-levels and traineeships. We are already developing a bespoke construction traineeship that will offer a clear route into a shorter apprenticeship. And we intend to boost the quality and uptake of higher technical qualifications that provide the skills that many employers say they need to survive and thrive, and that can lead to higher wages by introducing newly approved qualifications from September 2022 that are supported by government-backed brand and a quality mark. And while progression is absolutely crucial, we have to ensure that apprenticeships remain accessible to individuals at all stages of their career. We are still committed to an all-aged, all-level programme, and we need to continue to do this to ensure that we can increase social mobility, diversity and inclusion. But in the mantra of a former Prime Minister, it is all about progression, progression, progression. So moving on to one of our final messages around the importance of completions. Employers, apprentices and others invest significant money, time and effort into apprenticeships. And we know significant numbers of young people or of apprentices do move on and complete their apprenticeship and become fully occupationally competent. However, we need to ensure that greater numbers of apprentices complete their apprenticeship in full, proving that and being able to demonstrate that they are fully occupationally competent, not in not necessarily just with their current employer, but having the ability to use that as a route way into any further employment. We are increasing our focus on sectors with existing and emerging skills needs, guided by government national priorities. We're already engaging with the construction sector, manufacturing, public, health and social care, digital and creative sectors to understand and tackle the specific barriers these sectors face in making full use of apprenticeships. We have heard from the construction and the creative sectors that one of the barriers is the varied and flexible employment patterns that mean an apprentice and their employer are unable to commit to a minimum duration of 12 months. So we want to support apprentices and employers to make better use of apprenticeships in sectors where short-term project-based employment is the norm. So we want apprenticeships to be more portable to support these sectors. So to conclude, there are 4 critical topics where we need ambassadors to focus on. We still need you to do your storytelling, celebrating, signposting and insight, but we really need those 4 areas to focus on. How do we drive higher quality within the apprenticeship programme? How do we get more small to medium-sized employers to feel the benefits of apprenticeships? How do we support and promote progression both into an apprenticeship and through an apprenticeship? And lastly, but by certainly no means least, how do we ensure we get more apprentices to achieve their apprenticeship in full? And as Jason had said, the 9 regional networks and the multi-regional team will create their new delivery plans around these key areas of importance for the programme, where activities can be matched to support these new topics, all aligned to the existing AAN objectives of celebrating, storytelling, signposting and insight. I can tell you that there is no greater advocate for the apprenticeship programme than having apprentices or employers telling their story of the success that apprenticeships have made both to their individual careers and to the success of their business. So further work is going to be happening over the next couple of months, led by the chairs, to start looking about how do we apply celebrating, storytelling, signposting and insight into driving quality, increasing small employer involvement, improving progression into and through apprenticeships, and ensuring that more of our apprentices meet and can demonstrate full occupational competence through their completion. So some great work still to be done, and Peter and I are now very happy to take any questions that you would like to pose to us. Thank you.
I have today. So I think the big thing is this isn't, today is all about the start of the journey. I think we've had a great session earlier, and I'm going to recap on a couple of those points, I think, just to add context to this very briefly, and then hopefully we can work together to get out a little bit of thought and maybe some ideas. So I want you to feel like you can contribute. It's our network, or it's your network, and actually I think it's really important you've got that opportunity to be able to take a part in as we move to our new strategy. Are the slides still up, Deepak, or have they gone?
I'm having a bit of difficulty at the moment. Just give me a sec, please. Sorry.
But don't worry, what I'll do is I'll carry on. So I think the thing is the aim of today is to really think about how we can align to the new priorities that both Jason and Karen have spoken about today. And therefore, it's, as I said a minute ago, it's about a start of a journey. So if you go to the next one, Deirdre. I think the important thing is that it's your opportunity really to get involved with us now, and all we've done is some initial thinking. So please don't think that this is already decided. This is all about how the regions are really going to take ownership to move forward on it. So if you go to the next one, Deirdre, I think that's probably the second one covered. What I think is important, Jason said today and Karen mentioned that the quadrants, the vision is still very much the same as it always has been. It's not changed for the sake of change its shape. We felt that during COVID that the network had really demonstrated just how agile and responsive we've been to all the requests that's been made of the network. And therefore what we've actually done, I think we've actually added that in because we see that as a really important attribute that the AAN has already demonstrated. And we think going forward, it's something we want to hold on to. So under objectives, if you just notice there, we've added to be agile and responsive. Other than that, the national strategy that we set ourselves a few years back now hasn't changed. And therefore, I think the really theme of today is really to stress to you all, if it's working, let's not change it. And I think that's where we are. So next slide, Deepak. So you heard Karen talk about the 4 quadrants and how important they were in terms of celebrating storytelling. All we've tried to do in the work we're redoing is we want to think of new ideas that will underpin in those headings in terms of the new priorities. So really, we're quite used to reporting against those in the 4 quadrants. And all we're going to do is switch the work that sits beneath it in terms of the emphasis. And the real important thing is the regions actually going forward on this basis. So if we go to the next slide, I think that's clear. I'll stop for a minute. Has anyone got any questions that they want to raise so far? Anything I've probably skipped through quite quickly that anyone's got any questions or queries? No? Okay, I'll carry on. By all means, put your hand up or anything as we go. So in terms of where we've got so far, so we think the structure's sound. We think the process we had, it works, therefore let's not change it. We started to generate some ideas really at a workshop that we had, but really we need your help now to generate more. Any ideas appreciated, no idea will be discounted. Anything you say might have value because it will prompt another thought, another line of your thought. It might not be relevant for your region, but another region might pick up on it. No suggestions that are made today will be lost. They'll all be captured and they'll all be taken forward so that all of the chairs in all of the regions have got a solid base to work away from. It doesn't mean that ideas won't be added later. It really, we're just trying to provide everyone with a really good starting point so that we can get through this quite quickly as a network to be in shape to go really push on with what we would see as our new year, but obviously we'll transition earlier. The other thing I think is really important to stress, this is about the YAN and the AAN working together. It's about us all generating ideas. It's about looking at whether we can come closer together around a common set of things that we're trying to use and report against. It's not about mandating what you must do. It's about trying to integrate your thoughts and your strategies into one big strategy so that we can articulate and report against it more effectively. Right, so if we go to the next slide, it's all about where, in terms of where we are, we've captured all the work that was done originally. So if you flick on to the next slide, Deepak, is that we've captured it in such a way that in terms of the priorities, in terms of a low, medium and high, and the reason we did that is probably worth understanding, is we did that because we thought we might try and give a range of options to ESFA in terms of how we respond in terms of the grant. But the way the thinking has developed, I think what we'll do is we'll roll it out. We'll see if we get some consistency. But the important thing is, I think we hold on to what we think we can bring the most value to. And all we're going to do is capture the ideas. They've been colour coded because when some of the ideas have come through, we thought they might be better ideas for the multi-regional employers rather than maybe some of the networks. It's not to say that we can't both use common sets of measurables or ideas we're working towards. So really we've shown that document purely because that's where the ideas are being collated. So if you say something today, we'll add it into that sheet, and that's along the theme of nothing's lost. No, it's a bit like the army, nobody's left behind. It's that sort of thing. Very much, and I know you're probably struggling working out how quickly I could do the PT lessons and then present now. So, right, so where are we in terms of slides? Next slide, Deepak.
I am moving it along, Neil. It's just got a bit of a lag for some reason.
That's all right, don't worry. It's probably because I'm speaking quickly. I'll try and slow down for you. So really then, how do we use our ideas from today? We'll take it as, I think what I've said is, we'll take it as a base. This is only, as I said before, the first step. The really important thing is the network works so well for those two things that I've written in there in red. And in fact, it was one of the young ambassadors, I think, from the first workshop come up with those. And it was locally relevant. The locally relevant is just so important to us. Each region has got its own problems. It's got its own particular ways of doing things, surprisingly. But the point being is that's where I think that locally relevant is just so important with the network, because that's why we reach into the ambassadors, the employers, local, the young people. So that's really important. And I think that's about how we go forward, is keeping ownership of what we're doing in each region. How we bring it back together is where we become nationally significant, and we can help ESFA actually look at all the impacts we're having across the country. So it's about, from today, taking the different aspects that we want to do and then moving it forward in terms of aggregating it back together again. But the most important thing is for the regions now to take the work and do more work on it. Really challenge it, really think about how we make them come to life in your own regions. And some ideas today go into the pot purely because it's just a way of reminding people of some of the ideas that people have come up with. So if we go to the next slide, what we think is maybe we've used the measurables. Now, all right, what we've tried to do is we've come up with a much longer list, and it's not that we're expecting everybody to go away and start reporting against all of these. What we're saying is it's important, I think, that we try and aggregate and show impact of what we're doing as a network, because sometimes it gets lost. Sometimes we don't tell people enough about how much impact we're having. So the new measurables are not meant to move us towards being a numbers-driven culture. The AAM was never that and will never become that. What it is, it's about sharing our success in a coherent way. So what we've done is we've come up with some new measurables. We haven't put targets in there, you know, that's for regions to decide. We're not saying that every region should report against every one of these, or that the YAM must report against all of them. What we're trying to do is, again, set a structure out that people will look at what they want to do locally and then decide which measurables are most relevant to what they're trying to put their concentrate on. This is about the regions taking ownership, as we did before, because that is why we are so successful, because all of the local ambassadors understand what they're doing, and it's different region to region. It's not a competition. It's not about who does the most hours. We don't look at it that way as chairs. It's about we all make our own impact. We're all satisfied in the work that we're doing, and then it's about telling other people what the impact overall is. The nationally significant bit this is, I guess. So generate the ideas, go through them locally, work out which measurables are right, work out what sort of targets we want to aim for and shoot for. Again, you're not accountable for it. This is about these are targets. These are great things to have. Last year and the last few years, we've all smashed the targets. It is just what the work we've done. We set ourselves targets based on a network that was 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. And obviously we set targets because we worked in a totally different way. Let's be honest, we've outstripped the targets massively. We've done that because actually the targets work for us, because the amount of ambassadors has grown, the networks have developed and grown, the way we're working together has developed. So we've got better. So all right, the targets, yes, we outstripped them, but actually if you look at what we achieved, it was massively impressive. So let's get on, because I think it's important we get to the workshop bit rather than me talking. So today's workshop, I thought, let's take 10 minutes. There's a sheet we've emailed around. If you can work where you are at the moment, I don't know, you're all probably different in terms of whether it's possible, or jot down a few on the bit of paper, or you'll drop a few comments into the chat box if you can't fill out the form. And I think the form looks something like, if you just turn to the next sheet, Deepak, I sent a form round that's sort of like this, so people can put some ideas down on a bit of paper. We can email those back to Emily. You could think of, we could share after this discussion, but I thought take 10 minutes, think about some ideas around those headings that we've got. We'll leave that slide on the screen in case you haven't got access to the sheet. And then what we'll do is we'll take 5-10 minutes, come back together, share a few ideas, discuss about whether we understand, if there's any queries. And then actually maybe what we'll do is you can fill the forms out post meeting, and again you can send them back to Emily. That way we make sure we collect everything. Right, so
Neil, can I just say there's a question from Lord Young, Tony. Do you want to ask your question? You got your hand up.
Yeah, I did. It was earlier on, but listening, I listened to, I carried on listening to Neil, and I think in the light of what Neil said, it's probably better if I look at the sheet I haven't got a copy of it, so I'm only be able to look at it on the screen. And also, for some reason, I can never find how I access a chat box on my, I'm on an iPad, and I can never damn well find it on this.
If you look at the screen, scribble down some ideas for me, Lord Young, and then what I'll do is at the relevant time, I'll bring you in on the
yeah. Well, that's what I thought. I didn't really particularly want to. I mean, you know, my focus. Well, my focus is twofold.
I know what it is, but you're not going to influence that. You're going to influence the room now if I let you, and I'm going to stop you.
I won't.
On the bit down now, so that other people can think about their priorities, and then I'll bring you all back together, Lord Joe, if that's okay, Tony.
Yeah, that's more than okay.
Right, any other questions about what we're going to do, or any other suggestions, or anything people aren't sure about?
Sorry, it's me again, Neil. Just asking if we could have the slides on slideshow, please, Deepak, so people can have a quick look.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Sorry, am I calling him by the wrong name? It's Deirdre, isn't it?
that name must stick after today. That's the whole purpose, that we make sure his name is Deirdre forever.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other thoughts? George, have you any thoughts in terms of what I've said while people start to think, in terms of sharing any you think I may not got the emphasis quite right?
No, I think generally, I think you did. I think I echo what people have said. The slides, in the way that they're coming across, are quite small and difficult to read. So I think they will need, the attendees to the workshop need to actually sort of see it in normal size if possible, and then once they've been able to get a better feel, some of what you described, I think, Neil, will the penny will drop for them. So I think that's very important to give people the opportunity to really read what we've actually presented.
I thought the slides might form a good starting point for each of the chairs to brief the wider region, each region by region.
I think, Neil, the question that's been posed this afternoon, I think for them to be able to contribute and actually maybe respond through the sheet that you provided, I think they will need to have an opportunity just to sort of scan those slides, and I think that will then help, Neil.
Okay.
But I think you actually, your presentation was exactly the way we you know, that you know, that we actually talked about as a subgroup, you know. So I think Nigel and myself and yourself with Deepak and Stephen, I think your presentation was perfect.
Okay, cheers, mate. We need a bit of music, or maybe Deepak to dance while this bit's being done to sort of fill the background, or sing to us, Deepak, like they did at the conference, had that nice music in the background. Maybe you could sing while everyone's thinking about the sheets.
Right. How long do you want us to take on this, Neil? Are you putting a time?
About 5 minutes, I think, just to stop and reflect in terms of some of the bits that's on there. Hopefully people can see the targets that Karen set this morning in terms of the objectives with a little bit more detail. I know the detail's a bit small on there, but hopefully that will give people a bit more of an idea. But really, as I said, it's not a test to come up with 1 for everything, 3 for everything. If you've only got 1 idea or 2, it's absolutely fine. The point being is we've got time after the conference for this to carry on. So really, I think it's just to start the debate and see the sorts of things that might be in people's minds on all the different things they've heard about today. Yeah, there's some good things coming up in the chat box as well. Thanks. And the other thing I think is making sure that the Yan feel that they get involved and that we actually all work on this together, so that we end up with joint objectives that we're all trying to do. So
just echo what you've just said there, Neil. We must get the Yan engagement, and I think, you know, that is essential, because we want full buy-in from ambassadors at every level in the regions to be able to deliver what we are talking about. So you know, I would just say that it's imperative that we have Yans fully involved in the regions on this.
I know we've got Luke on the call. Are you there, Luke? Are you able to come off mute and chat for a second?
Of course.
Hi, Luke. How are you?
I'm really well. Great session.
Yeah, cheers. It was good earlier, wasn't it? So yeah, Luke is one of the joint chairs in London. And what are your thoughts in terms of the presentation you just saw? I know we still to go through it together, but your first thoughts in terms of how we're approaching this. Do you think it's something we can engage with Yan effectively on this, or?
Yeah, first of all, I'd say that the message isn't being diluted at all. I would say that it's in shared consciousness between the chairs that there's a little bit of insight on how we speak to each other. We understand as much as you do that this is the aim is to be a joint endeavor. Absolutely. So our relationship, I don't think that's a sticking point in our relationship. Just looking at the sheet, I think you're right in saying that the detail is a little bit scarce on these kind of 4 pillars. And I think what would be particularly helpful is sort of, we have these, you know, ways we can suggest the AN help deliver, but what I think is more the question is ways we can help the AN kind of shape these going forward. So it's less about, you know, you can kind of talk until the cows come home about how we want to deliver things, and the list can be completely non-exhaustive. But the question I like to help shape my thinking is what can we do together to help, you know, less deliver these objectives, but more shape what these objectives are trying to achieve. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do, and I do think it's important that some of them might appear quite wide-ranging, but I think that the purpose is that we could have 3 or 4 activities that we're jointly running with at different times during the year to try and address each over a timescale, and the importance of them region by region will vary. You know, I mean, something like connecting with SME is probably consistent across all of the country. and therefore, but how we do that in London could be very different to how it's done in the Northwest, etc. Or the ideas that that group follow because of the makeup of the networks. So I think the real challenge for us is to take this as Jan and AAN ambassadors in each of the and make it really relevant to how we're going to deliver it.
I think
and I think that's where I think talking and working together, we're going to be able to deliver it fine. So
it's the sense of regional autonomy in how we choose and pick the objectives that work for us the best. I think is just, it's so right, and why we didn't do it before, I don't know. It just makes so much sense, doesn't it? Because whilst the umbrella objectives will be the same, the way things work region by region does differ slightly, and it's really great to recognise that in the kind of machine.
And the other thing is, I think we should recognise is that it's a bit like how we responded to COVID as a network. We were very agile. We were appreciated in terms of how we changed the way we worked. And the thing is priorities emerge sometimes, or problems develop in an area, or opportunities open up to us to be able to explore in a totally different way. The beauty of the network regionally, we can be agile, and what we can do is we can shift our focus because we suddenly found a charity that's making a real impact on the ground, and we could put 100% support around them. So it's not having a fixed mindset, it's having a structure and a plan that we're trying to work to and report against, but actually in the background just getting on with what we think is the most appropriate thing at the relevant time. Right, should we draw it back together? Because I think it would be good to, we've got about 20 minutes and it would be a good opportunity to share a couple of ideas, and I don't know, there's a lot in the chat, so I don't know if we want to pull some off the chat to be able to share. All of the ones in the chat will be recorded and I will make sure they're all included, as I said earlier, so thanks for that. Anyone, and I agree with that point you just said, James, absolutely. So I think the important thing is that we'll capture everything. If there's anything you can do after this, before you get together with your chairs regionally, fill the form out and send it to Emily, because I think that I would appreciate you doing that. So if we're all back on, Deepa, how do you want to do this? Does somebody want to pick some out, or do you want me to pick them out? The lovely Deirdre, what do you think?
Yeah, go for it. I still had my screen on the slide, so I can't see the chat, Neil.
Okay, no worries. So let's look at it. Make contact with the DWP. Can we share employers with the Kickstarters? Then talk about progressions, traineeships, try smaller programs. Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think there's a good opportunity. I think we've looked at new priorities in terms of DWP. Obviously, what you haven't seen is the work that was done in the workshop, and that is one of the things that come out from the ambassadors actually. So that's interesting. That was done, and that reinforces actually some of the ideas. The chair we present were really useful region workshop discussions. Yeah, into same message for intermediary bodies. Yeah, intermediary bodies. In fact, actually, maybe we should be thinking about how the intermediary bodies actually, whether they contribute to this workshop, and actually whether we need to draw them into the regional, or who does that, Deepak. That's probably interesting. Is it George? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I just want to say that we've embraced intermediary ambassadors as part of our network. So I know Dennis is on the he's on this there, and Dennis Heaney is an intermediary ambassador as well as a apprenticeship ambassador, and so basically he picks up an awful lot from our meeting, and also Dennis brings an awful lot to the meeting. So it's a win-win situation, as I say it, to involve intermediaries, and I think it's important we do that.
So, but the problem with that is it's working out into which region we put them, otherwise they'll be lost. because there's you don't want to only take 10 of the intermediaries. It's making sure we do that. So I agree with George. I think it's a real opportunity. If we've got them involved, it's where we involve them and at what regions, and make sure they're all connected in, so that we don't lose the potential of drawing them in to actually achieve what we're trying to do. So we need to take that as an action outside the meeting.
We can pick that up, Neil, and Tracy, my colleague on the phone, she actually leads on the intermediaries network, so definitely something we could explore further.
Re-engaging with SMEs and using the Chamber of Commerce, yeah, again, another really good point. And again, maybe what we should do is, I know that when we did the business plans originally, we tried to develop a list of all the people that we should keep in contact with. Some were relevant to regions, others weren't. And maybe what we should do is just make sure we, as best